Welcome to the last lecture for Chapter 7. In this lecture, I'm going to be going through question 714. And in question 714, we are doing a reconciliation with external records. In the previous questions that we've done in Chapter 7, we've been doing internal reconciliations. In this question, we are going to be looking at an individual creditor's account for the business, we are traders. And in their creditors ledger account, they have an account for Melmore and Sons. That's one of their creditors. And this account is done for the month of September 20X5. And they tell us some of the transactions that are in this creditors account are incorrect. But the balance that it shows that's owing to the creditor at the end of the month is 57,750. The external record that we're going to be balancing to is this statement that we've received from Melmore and Sons. So this is Melmore and Sons statement, which they are sending to us. We are traders. We just need to check and see this statement was done at the 25th of September. At that date, they say we owe them 81,565. So you will see the two amounts are not equal. One of the reasons for that will be because this is on the 30th and this is on the 25th. So there would be transactions that happen in that 5-day period that haven't been recorded by the creditor, but there obviously are also other things that were done incorrectly, and you will see now things that have been left out and so on. So we are going to be making sure that what we have in our books as owing to Melmore and Sons will agree to what Melmore and Sons says is owing. It won't necessarily be the 81,565. We will reconcile that 81,565 to what we say is owing in terms of our creditors ledger account. In the question, we get given a whole lot of additional information, and we're told we need to prepare the correct account of Melmore and Sons in the creditors ledger of We're Traders. And we're doing that for September 20X5. And then we must reconcile the statement that we got from Melmore and Sons with this correct account that we've done in Part A. So in our solution, we have to do a creditors ledger, the account for Melmore and Sons, and we're going to do a reconciliation where we're going to start with the statement balance that we've been given. And the statement balance we've been given from Melmore and Sons at the end of the month is 81,565. So we start with that balance and we work down to the corrected balance per our creditors ledger account. Per our account, we're going to get a corrected balance here. We'll give this reconciliation to our supplier and we will tell them this credited, the correct balance amount is the amount we agree to, and we will agree to it because we're going to recreate the creditors ledger account, and the balance on the creditors ledger account for Melmore and Sons should agree to the reconciled balance that we've done in the reconciliation, which goes back to the balance that the supplier gave us that they said was owing. So we've got to do those two things in this question. So now the way to do that is to go back now to your question and have a look first of all at what's going on in the creditors ledger account for Melmore and Sons. The first thing we have is we have an opening balance of 35,875. That opening balance is correct. It's on the credit side. That's where it belongs because it's a liability. If we go and look at the statement from Melmore and Sons, you need to check the dates carefully. The 31st of August is the end of August, beginning of September. That amount of 35,875 agrees to our opening balance. So in other words, the opening balance is correct, and I'm going to put that into the creditors ledger account for Melmore and Sons. So 20X5, and the date will be September the 1st, and this will be the balance brought down, and this balance agrees to the opening balance on the statement that I got from my supplier. 35,875. And it's on the correct side. Okay, then we're going to go and look at all the transactions that have already been entered in the creditor's account. We have on the 7th here a transaction that says bank 40,250 posted from the creditors column in the cash payments journal. Now we know that if we pay our suppliers, we're going to be reducing the money in the bank, crediting bank, and we should be debiting the supplier, the creditor's account. So this is actually on the wrong side. This amount of 4250 should go onto the debit side. So that amount of 4250 is incorrect for it to be on the credit side. It should be on the debit side. So I'm going to now go back to my general ledger account, and here on the debit side, I'm going to record the fact that there was a payment made, and the payment amount is 4250. But first of all, what I'm going to write here is I'm going to write bank and settlement discount received, because the amount that they've given me is posted from the creditors column in the cash payments journal. The amount they give me is 4250. I'm not going to put that amount into my ledger account amount column yet, because there might be changes when I read the additional information. Something might need to change to that amount. So at the moment, I'm just going to leave it there, but I'm making a note for myself that there needs to, on the 7th, that 4250, I might need to adjust it, but it needs to go on the debit side of Nelmore & Sons to represent the payment that we made to them on the 7th. Then on the 7th, it also says settlement discount received. Now, we've just said that we've posted here from the creditors column in the cash payments journal. That means we posted the amount we paid, plus we posted the settlement discount we received, because the two amounts together will be equal to what we owed to the creditor. So in the creditors column, we'll have the payment and the settlement discount amount. So this 4250 includes both of those amounts. That means it's wrong to show the settlement discount received again. Otherwise, we'd be double counting. So I'm crossing that out because I'm not going to enter it into my solution. Then I've got another amount for bank, and again, it's on the wrong side. This is 35,000 posted from the cash payments journal, and this also is posted from the creditors column, which again means that it is bank and settlement discount received. Okay, so this first one was on the 7th. Sorry, I didn't put the date in there. This next one is on the 22nd. And again, the name of the accounts that are going to be credited are bank and settlement discount received. And the amount is going to be 35,000. For the moment, I'm just writing it there in a bracket because it's like a calculation, because I'm not too sure if there's going to be any adjustments to that amount in the additional information that they give me. If there's no adjustments, then I'm going to take the 3250 and put it into the column for the amount, and the 4250 in the column for the amount on the 7th. So if I go back to my account for the creditor, there's one last transaction on the credit side for purchases. This was posted from our purchases journal. This means that they're using the periodic system because they're debiting purchases and crediting creditors. That's correct. The creditors are increasing by 35,000 Rand. So on the credit side, on the 27th, there's an amount that must be recorded for purchases from the purchases journal. And again here, I'm just going to put the 35,000 in a bracket because I want to see if there's anything that might change that amount in the additional information. So I've now dealt with everything on the credit side. So the 35,875 I've put in, and I've made a note of these other three amounts. If there's nothing that changes those amounts and additional information, then they will go into the creditor's account as they are. Then on the debit side of the account, there's an amount for purchases. Now we've just seen purchases actually should be going on the credit side. So that's incorrect, and we need to fix that. It doesn't matter that the dates are not running in order. So here on the 6th, we're going to write purchases, and this amount is 78,750. So again, I'm just going to record that there, and we'll see if there are any changes that need to be made when we look at the additional information. So that 78,750 is on the wrong side. Settlement discount received, we talked about that just now. We said that all the payments that we made, the posting here from the cash payments journal is from the creditors column. That means the amount is what we paid plus the settlement discount that we received. So we don't record settlement discount received separately. So we're going to ignore that amount. We won't post it to our creditors account. It shouldn't be there. The purchases returns amount of 3,500. That is correct. It's reducing how much we owe to the supplier because we return purchases. We debit the supplier's account, we debit creditors, and we credit purchases returns, which reduce your purchases expense. Okay, so in Nelmore & Sons account, we're going to, on the 24th, have an amount for purchases returns, and that amount is 3,500. Sorry, I'm looking at the purchases returns. Yes, it's 3,500. So at the moment, I'm just going to write the 3,500 there because I'm going to check if anything changes that amount in the additional information. So I've put that 3,500. I've made a note that that must go to the debit of the creditor's account. Then I've got an RD check. So what happened here is that I would have made a payment to a supplier, but later on that payment bounced back. In other words, the supplier didn't get paid. So when I pay the supplier, I'm normally going to debit the supplier's account. So when the payment gets reversed, it means I must credit the supplier's account because now I have to put back the fact that I owe them that money because they never received the money. So the 7875 should be on the credit side of the creditor's account. So I'm going to put that here. I'm going to say on the 25th, we will debit bank because there was an RD check. And the amount of that RD check is 7875. Okay. And then they have a balance. So what I've done now is I've made a note of all of the transactions that do belong in the creditor's account, but I've just posted them to the correct side of the creditor's account. So in the creditor's account, I have all the correct account names of what's being debited and credited. I've got my amounts ready there to put into the totals column once I've checked that there are no adjustments from the additional information. So now I'm going to go and read the additional information, and finally after that I'll come back and look at the statement that I got from the creditor. The first thing they tell me in the additional information is that all transactions on the statement and in the account were between the two relevant parties. The reason they tell us that is sometimes the transaction might get recorded, but it's for a different creditor, and then obviously it doesn't belong in that account. That all the transactions we see are between Weir Traders and Nelmore & Sons. So that's what that's telling us. Then on the 2nd, the purchases on 27th September were subject to a trade discount. Sorry, not the 2nd, item number 2. The purchases on 27th of September were subject to a trade discount of 7% that was not taken into account. Remember, trade discount is a discount you get when you buy. It's not a settlement discount. You have to record the price after that discount. So if we go back and look on the 27th of September, here's the 35,000 for purchases. So what that's telling me is that that 35,000 needs to be reduced. So I have to take that 35,000 and I'm going to multiply it by 93%. That means I'm subtracting 7%. So 35,000 minus 7% is going to give me 32,550 and that's the actual amount for the purchases after the 7% trade discount. So I'm correcting that amount. What they've also told me here in item number 2 is that this happened on the 27th. And remember, my supplier, he's only done the statement up till the 24th. So this invoice that we're talking about is not in this balance. So I have to add that to this balance here. So he has a balance of 81,565, and we're now going to say that there were purchases that happened on the 27th of September, and the amount of the purchases after the discount is 32,550, and that needs to be added to what we owe to the supplier. It's not recorded on his statement. We're adding it to what we owe because his statement was only done up until the 25th of September. So now we go back and look at the next bit of information, item number 3. There were unsatisfactory goods to the value of 2,500 that were returned on the 15th of September, and it was omitted from both our ledger account and the statement of the supplier. And Nelmore and Sons did receive the goods we returned, and they've accepted the returned goods. So that means we need to be recording it in our books because it's a purchaser's return, and we're also going to record it as a reconciling item. So purchaser's returns in our general ledger account, sorry, not in the creditors ledger account rather, we know purchaser's returns belong on the debit side of the account. So on the 15th, there was an amount here for purchaser's returns that wasn't recorded. So we're going to put that amount in, and the amount for purchaser's returns is 2,500. And I need to also go and make that a reconciling item because those purchaser's returns were also not reflected by Nelmore and Sons yet. This happened on the 15th of September. So we're going to subtract it from the balance they gave us because that's an amount that they've accepted that we don't have to pay for goods that we've returned to them. Then we're going to go on and look. They say in item number 4, the cancelled check was issued in settlement of account of 8,050. So that means if we look here at this RD check of 7,875, remember that was a payment that we made and the payment bounced. So they're telling us the actual amount that we paid was 8,050. So if I subtract the payment that we made of 7,875, it means we received a discount, a settlement discount we received of 175. So we have to record the fact that there's settlement discount that needs to get reversed. So you will remember that already we've recorded the fact that there's an RD check. So I know that that RD check is 7,875. And I also know now that I need to add back the settlement discount that I received because the payment hasn't been made. It means I'm not entitled to the settlement discount anymore. What we do with journal debits and credits is we just add up the total amounts. Sorry about that. We add up the totals and we're going to be debiting sundry accounts and we are going to be crediting the creditors accounts in the creditors ledger, and the first amount is 175. You could have written here settlement discount received because that 175 is reducing settlement discount received. So we debit settlement discount received and we credit the creditor because it's now increasing the amount that we owe the creditor. We owed them 7,875 plus the 175, which is 8,050. So now if we think about it, what they're telling us here, that this cancelled check, it only bounced on the 25th of September, and there's no record of that check, the bouncing of the check in this statement. We are going to assume that the receipt has already been recorded by Nelmore and Sons of the money but the bouncing of the check hasn't been recorded. So we have to put that as a reconciling item onto the reconciliation. So I'm going to write here the RD check. The RD check was on the 25th of September, and that 7875 is an amount we then still owe them. We previously paid, but now that check got cancelled because it bounced, and we must also reverse the settlement discount that we previously received from them, and these two amounts together add up to the original 8,050 that was owing for that particular payment. So we've increased the amount on the reconciliation, we've added it back to the balance that's owing according to the supplier statements, and here we've put in the amounts into our creditors ledger accounts. If we now go back to the question, they tell us item number 5, invoice 3180 is for 78,750. So now I've got to go back and look in the question. I see here there's purchases of 78,750. Those purchases were posted on the wrong side. We have to post it on the credit side. But if you go and look at the statement, so we are working with the statement for September. Here on the statement for invoice 3180, they showed the incorrect amount. They showed 78,250 and they're supposed to show 78,750. So in other words, their statement is under by 500 Rand. So I have to go and put that as a reconciling item. I don't have to do anything in my creditors ledger account. I need to add it here as a reconciling item. So this is a correction of invoice 3180. And I'm adding 500 Rand because that's an extra 500 Rand that they didn't record. They recorded the amount 500 Rand too little. Then if I go back, then I look at the last point, that's point number 6. On the 28th of September, Weir Traders were charged with 125 Rand interest by Nelmore and Sons because their account was overdue. No entry has been made. So that means we now owe Weir Traders more. We're going to credit the creditor because we're increasing the creditor, and we're going to debit interest expense with 125. This interest expense needs to be recorded in our books, and it needs to be a reconciling item for the supplier. So in our books, I'm going to add that to sundry accounts. So the sundry accounts is everything that's posted from the general journal. So those two accounts, I'm going to be debiting settlement discount received and debiting interest expense. And the total of the two amounts together is going to be increasing creditors by 300 because the settlement discount got reversed and I now owe 125 Rand interest. So that 125 Rand needs to be added here, interest charged. I need to add that to the balance plus 125 added to the balance that they gave us because they haven't recorded the interest yet. So now if you go and look at all the additional items, we've dealt with all of them. What you have to be careful about is just to think about when you needed to adjust our ledger account, when you needed to make a reconciling item, and sometimes you have to do both and sometimes only one. So remember, it goes into our ledger account if the entry needs to be fixed or it needs to be recorded, it's not there, and it goes onto the reconciliation if it's not in the closing balance that we've used at the start of the reconciliation. So we add to this any additional amounts that are owing that weren't recorded by the creditor, and we subtract any amounts that are reducing what we owe that has not been recorded by the creditor. I'm now going to change my pen color because what I want to do is I want to reconcile now what we've done in our creditors account with what is showing in the statement. So if we look at our opening balance, we've got 35,875, And that 35,875 agrees to the opening balance on the statement from the creditor. So I put a tick next to both of those. Then if I go back and look, there's not that much on the creditor's account, so it's probably better just to look here. This 78,250 was for this invoice over here, the 78,750. Now remember that 78,750 is the correct amount. They only showed 78,250, so we had to add another 500 to what we owe them because they had shown 500 Rand too little for that. So that 500 they subtracted from the 78,750, which is why they only had 78,250. This 35,000 is money that we paid to them on the 22nd. And if we go and look at our ledger account here on the 22nd, I'm going to put the 35,000 in because that payment has been recorded. Here's the 35,000. They've received it and we've recorded that we made the payment on the 22nd. Then if I go and look again at their account, they've got invoice 3432 for 2,440. Now if I go and look at my account, I don't see that invoice. I've actually got to go and record that invoice because it hasn't yet been recorded. So on the 24th, I'm going to record the fact that there were additional purchases. This invoice amount is for 2,440. So that amount has been recorded by them and it hadn't been recorded by me. So that 2,440 was the last amount that was on the statement and I've now checked that to what I needed to do. This 81,565, which was their closing balance, is what we start our reconciliation with. This reconciliation is normally something you will send to your supplier. You will pay them the amount that you say is owing, and you will show them how it balances to what they had as the balance on their statement. So what we've done is we've taken all of the amounts that were on their statement and make sure that that is all being reflected in our ledger account as we expected it to. So if I now look at what I had here on the credit side, I've dealt with the 35,000 times 93%, the 78,750 and the 7875. I could put them straight in. You will have remembered that this 7875 over here, we've already recorded as a reconciling item, and the 175 for discount, we've already recorded it here as a reconciling item. The purchases over here of 32,550, they've also been recorded as a reconciling item because these amounts were in our account and they weren't on the statement. Then the last amount, which is on the credit side, is the interest. That interest is also a reconciling amount because it's not on the statement of the supplier. So I'm making sure that I'm accounting for everything. So I've now accounted for everything on the credit side. On the debit side, I'm now going to put in that 4250 and I'm going to put in the 3,500 Rand here for purchases returns. That 4250 hasn't been shown in the statement. I need to then show that in my reconciliation as a reduction of how much is owing. So this is a payment that was made that they haven't recorded, and this payment was made by us on the 7th of September. Okay, so I can then say that 4250 balances to the 4250 over here. The 3,500 purchases returns, that 3,500 hasn't been recorded by them either. I'm actually running out of space here a little bit. I'm going to squeeze it in over here. Sorry about that. But the purchases returns of the 3,500 on the 24th of September was recorded by us, but hasn't been recorded by the supplier on their statement. So we're going to reduce the amount that is owing to the supplier by 3,500. So that 3,500 is a reconciling item because it was in our books and not in their books. Then finally, the 2,500 we've recorded in our books, and we've already shown that as a reconciling item. You will now notice that I've got a red tick next to everything in my creditors ledger account. I've also got a red tick next to everything in the statement for the month of September, and I've got a red tick next to everything in the reconciliation that I did from the balance per the supplier statement to my final balance that I'm going to calculate here. If you take this 81,565 and you add and subtract all of the amounts, you get a final amount of 76,540. Now we hope that that is going to be the same balance that is going to appear in our general ledger account, and it should be if we've done everything correctly. So if we now go to our general ledger account, the credit side should be the biggest side because it's a liability. We expect it to have a credit balance. If we add up the credit side, we get 157,790, and we then subtract everything on the debit side. That means on the 30th of September, we're going to have a balancing amount here that we're going to carry down, and the balancing amount is going to be 76,540. So on the 1st of October, we'll have a balancing amount that we'll carry down of 76,540. And we're happy now because that 76,540 agrees to the 76,540 that we've put onto the reconciliation. So what will happen is we'll make a payment probably in October. We'll pay the supplier 76,540 if we pay the full amount, and we'll send the supplier this reconciliation to say, this is what you said we owed. These are all the transactions that you still need to correct or make provision for in your books, and then we are actually going to pay you the amount that we have in our accounts, which is 76,540. So we've now completed the question because we've reconciled our books. We are traders. We've reconciled what we say is owing. We've reconciled that back to what the creditor said was owing of 81,565. And that's what we were required to do in this question. So this question had to do with doing a reconciliation with external records. For homework, to do extra practice, try question 715. Thank you very much.